legends, and a bit of interesting news has taken over the MMA world over the last 24 hours, and coming off the back of last week, we were talking about UFC pay-per-view sales being down, Ariel Helwani making a big to-do about there not being any superstars left in the UFC. I find what is going on here with this story, Artem Vadakov turning down a UFC contract, to be a perfect sort of case study, an example of what has happened to the UFC. I find the entire thing very, very interesting, so that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. Now, if you don't know who Artem Vadakov is a, well, I would say former kickboxer, but he has gone back to kickboxing. He is the man who defeated Alex Pereira over at kickboxing. Then he came over to Dana White's Contender Series, won on Dana White's Contender Series. Then he got offered a contract by the UFC, and he has decided to turn that down and go back to kickboxing instead, because apparently the UFC, right after the Contender Series, refused to pay any more than what it says on their little pre-written contracts. Now, to the general audience out there, is Artem Vadakov going to be the next big Conor McGregor? No, probably not. I don't even think he's going to reach the general sort of D-tier levels of celebrity that Peyton Talbot seems to be pressing up against. But he is well known amongst the hardcore of the most hardcore fans in general of the sports combat community. The people who like to watch fisticuffs, and not just fisticuffs at the UFC, fisticuffs around all the other organizations. Artem Vadakov is known by those people. And of course, what he is known by most people is beating Alex Pereira over at kickboxing. But what people might not know is Alex Pereira actually got the win back over him before Alex Pereira came back over to MMA, right? Not a massive storyline, but a big enough storyline for the UFC to work with, you know? A big enough storyline for people to work with, okay? And this is what's so interesting about this. This guy's coming in from outside of the UFC onto Dana White's Contender Series, but he's already got a bit of a storyline built in. He's the guy who beat Alex Pereira at kickboxing. And like I was saying, when you look at the general conversation that's been going on, there was a conversation that was happening on the live stream last night. The UFC has stopped being a promotion machine. It has now turned into a production machine. You know, we all looked at last week this great promo that was shot for Conor McGregor versus Jose Aldo, a really theatrical sort of a trailer. The UFC went and did multiple press conferences all over the world. They would take people like Ronda Rousey and Chuck Liddell and make sure to get them on late night television. They don't do any of that anymore. Now that the UFC has reached a certain level of success, it is a copy and paste machine that does the exact same thing every single day, every single way, no matter what. And what they have done with Vadakov is the exact same thing, except Vadakov isn't your run-of-the-mill just bloke from Perth working his way up to the Contender Series that likes a bit of a fisticuff. You know what I mean? He's not some copy and pasted shoot boxer guy from Brazil with barely 1,000 followers on Instagram, yeah? He's not another Habib or Islam clone that just seems to be coming out of the mountains of Dagestan, where it seems like the whole point of Dagestan's existence right now is to just be a factory of MMA fighters. The women just shit out children, and at 6 years old they go to Eagle FC, and then at 11 years old they start fighting taxi drivers until eventually they get into the UFC at 20 years old. No, Vadakov is not this person, this copy and pasted MMA fighter from around the world. Vadakov is his own built-in fan base. He already has a name around him. And the UFC, turning into a production company, which used to be a promotion company, said to him, you get the same contract as always, mate. You get 12 for 12. According to Vadakov, he says via Twitter, according to the UFC protocols, they were not able to offer me more than my standard contract offered to all fighters who progress through this show, that being the Contender Series. My team attempted to negotiate, but the UFC rules were strict and no changes were possible. Now, this is a thing that is going to get people out there riled up, and I mean people who don't watch the channel regularly, right? You know, if you do watch the channel regularly, I actually don't agree with the whole fighters don't get paid enough narrative, okay? There are some new people that are just clicking on this video for the first time. They might be seeing this. They are 100% going to be enraged by that sentence, you know? What do you mean the fighters don't get paid enough? They should be paid $1 million every single fight at least, mate. That's a bit of a straw man, but I do think the fighters get paid plenty, okay? The UFC, it pays for 3 performance institutes around the world, where at those performance institutes, all of your healthcare is provided for. All of your recovery is taken care of. Every single meal that you could want to eat is taken care of. Coaches, training partners, facilities, anything that you could possibly think of has been taken care of, and that is set up in 3 places around the world. If you are an American fighter and you choose not to go and live in Mexico and train at the Mexican PI for free, where all of your cost of living would be significantly lowered and you could just bank all of that cash and invest it for the future for when your fighting career is over, and instead you want to go and live in California and pay for your own private training camp at the most expensive city in the world, that is quite frankly your fucking problem. If you want to be Jack Hermanson or Marvin Vittori and fight once every 2 years, that is on you, bro. If you want to have such high level of tradecraft, of fight IQ, that you rock your opponent, you concuss them, you're wobbly, you've hit them with a big meaty hook, and then you decide to make the mental decision to chase them down onto the ground and grapple with them for the rest of the 3 minutes of the round, that is also on you, bro. Okay, whether or not these fighters get paid enough is a whole other conversation, but generally I think they get paid enough. Then there is, of course, that there's the entire idea that you come to the UFC with no brand, you have 1,000 Instagram followers, and the UFC has to build your entire brand with their full services, the idea of their YouTube channel, their Instagram, their TikTok, their Twitter powerhouse, on ESPN, when you get a microphone shoved in your face for 30 seconds, you are now there on the biggest sports channel in the world, and all you can be bothered to say is, oh yeah, thank God for the win, I want to thank my team, I want to thank my wife. Who do you want next, buddy? Oh, anyone the UFC is willing to give me, mate, will do. Pay me more. Honestly, sometimes I want to rip my hair out and scream when people say these fighters get paid too much. But Vanikov, he isn't your regular NPC UFC 5 career mode spawn-in, okay? He has legacy. He has a storyline, okay? And yes, he's not a champ, but neither is Alex Pereira, okay? And the other thing that is unfortunately going to annoy all of the Alex Pereira, so now I've annoyed all the people who think that fighters should get paid more. Now I'm going to annoy the Alex Pereira fans. The thing that is going to annoy the Alex Pereira fans is Alex Pereira, he's never going to be a champion again, okay? He's too old to get through Magomed Ankalaev in the rematch, right? He's going to fight Magomed Ankalaev. He's going to lose that fight again. Then Magomed Ankalaev is going to fight Yuri Prohaska. Maybe Yuri Prohaska will win that fight. I hope he does. Pray to the Lord that Yuri Prohaska wins that fight. But by the time all of that happens, Alex Pereira will be of an age where he's not going to be able to fight for a title competitively again. So, you've got Vanikov. Why can't we get him into the UFC and just find him 2 easy as hell strikers to play with while Alex Pereira fights Magomed Ankalaev and then heals up? Why can't we do that? And then set up Alex Pereira versus Vanikov. Why can we not pay him a decent salary? You know, usually, like I said, I usually agree with the fighter's pay, but sometimes it's different, right? Sometimes a guy actually has a fan base. Sometimes a guy actually has a storyline. Sometimes you could actually put him in a direction and you could make money. You know what I mean? Like, you're saving money, UFC, by not having to build up this guy's reputation. That already comes built in. So why not take that money that you're saving and put it into the bloke's contract, okay? And I get it. The argument would be he doesn't deserve to fight Alex Pereira straight away. But my argument would be, why not after 1 or 2 easy wins at lightweight? Why not? Why not? I mean, Kaya Sakura got a title shot in his very first go in the UFC. Michael Chandler got the ranked 5th Dan Hooker on his very first go in the UFC, and then in his second fight in the UFC, got to fight for a vacant title against Charles Oliveira. MVP on his second fight, got to fight for a number 1 contender-esque fight against Ian Gary. So your idea is, UFC, that we can't pay this guy a half decent amount, get him 2 wins in the UFC against nice, easy stand-up strikers in the light heavyweight division. I'm sure we could find 2 easy wins for him. We can't get him 2 wins. We can't get Alex Pereira another loss against Magomed Ankalaev, and then have Vanikov Pereira 3 or Vanikov Pereira 1 MMA and sell that as a fight night in Brazil at a crowded arena. You're telling me you don't want to make $15 million on the gate on ticket sales alone to have UFC Fight Night Brazil, Pereira versus Artem Vanikov MMA. Again, I usually think the fighters get paid more than enough for what they're doing in there. Again, I usually don't jump on the whole fighters don't get paid enough, but this is one of those indicators where I was talking about at the start of the video, that the UFC has gone from a promotion company to a production company. The idea that we can't budge from the 12 for 12 after the Contender Series shows a serious change in the mind frame of the UFC. It shows, what do you mean you can't budge? What do you mean you can't budge? It's your company. They're your rules. You wrote them down. You can unwrite them. You know, I guarantee you that in the next 2 years, there is going to be a fighter that the UFC wants to offer more money to than just 12 for 12 on the open market. Like, did you guys seriously offer Dakota Ditcheva from the PFL 12 for 12? Because the rumors were flying around over the Christmas break that the UFC were pushing hard to get her into the UFC, and PFL had that shit locked down. And it would have been pretty easy to negotiate with the UFC if they were just offering her 12 for 12. It is such a drop of the ball to see the direction that Alex Pereira's career is going, to want to continue to get money out of Alex Pereira and not think about UFC Brazil Fight Night, May 2026, Pereira Vatakov on the main card, as the main event of that fight night, with an undercard or a co-main event of, say, a Ruffy versus Paddy Pimblett. Yeah, this makes money. This is money. Netflix would pay for that. The ticket prices would pay for that. There is money that the UFC has just left on the table. And why did they leave it on the table? Because they're not creatively promoting anymore. They are producing. They have now got everything set in place, copy and paste, ready to go. Here comes a superstar from another organization. Too bad he doesn't fit the mold. Send him back out there in the world. The UFC just churns on. This is what the UFC has been left with now that Dana White has checked out and will start his new boxing organization with Turkshay Ali in 2026. Dana White will be gone by the end of this year. I got a real strong feeling. MMA On Point did a great video on this. I think they're 100% correct. Dana White has set everything up perfectly to run without him being there, and the UFC is a copy and paste production machine. And this story here of offering a great kickboxer 12 for 12 with a built-in storyline against your biggest champion, who now needs interesting and fun fights because he is not going to be a champion anymore, shows the UFC aren't a production company anymore. Aren't a promotion company anymore. That's what I was meant to say. Aren't a promotion company anymore. Anyway, that's it. That's the video. That's it. Let me know what you think about it down there in the comments, boys. What do you think Vatakov should have been worth? At least match what he was getting paid at kickboxing. Let me know. Maybe that's a little bit too much for someone who's fighting in the rankings. I don't know. You let me know about that down there in the comments. What do you think he was actually worth? Do you think Alex Pereira will ever be a champion again? That'll fire up Nacho in particular. And until then, I'm out of here, boys. If you're interested, if this is the first time here, g'day. My name's Dougie. I do an MMA video every single day of the week, Monday through Friday, and I go live at least 3 times a week. If you want to know when all that happens, you hit that subscribe button, you hit that notification bell. And if you like the video and you're already on board with the channel, you've already subscribed, please give the video a like, help it get out there in the algorithm. And if you're one of the paying members of the channel, thank you so much. I appreciate you all. Your names are up on the next slide. Until then, I'll see you guys in the next one.